Have you ever noticed how easy it is to be compassionate with everyone else, yet incredibly hard on yourself? You show grace to your children or other children. You show patience to your friends. You show understanding to your partner. But when it comes to your own mistakes, your own body, your own healing journey, you become a harvest and your harshest critic. Here's something most women never realize: the relationship you have with yourself may be affecting your health more than your diet, more than your supplements, even more than your exercise routine. Because when your nervous system is constantly swimming in self-criticism, pressure, guilt, perfectionism, and stress, your body never fully gets the message that it's safe. And later in this conversation, today's guest is going to share one simple realization he learned through years of meditation and self-discovery. A realization that completely changed how he viewed healing, struggle, and his relationship with himself. It's a lesson that sounds incredibly simple, but once you truly understand it, it becomes almost impossible to keep fighting yourself the same way. But before we dive into this episode, y'all already know what time it is. With me, y'all. Welcome to the Empowered Plates, Empowered Lives podcast. Y'all, welcome back to another episode of the Empowered Plates, Empowered Lives podcast. It's your healthy habits and lifestyle coach, Jovonnie, helping women who are tired of pushing through inflammation, burnout, pelvic pain, emotional exhaustion, and survival mode finally understand what their bodies are trying to tell them before they lose more years abandoning themselves to keep everything else running. Because your symptoms may be physical, but the pattern is deeper. Y'all, today we're exploring how to reinvent yourself without trying to become somebody else, how to stop treating healing like a self-improvement project, how to find peace in the middle of imperfection, and why learning to observe your thoughts instead of believing every one of them might be one of the most powerful health habits you ever develop. Welcome to the Good Vibe Studio, Rick.
Hey, Jovonnie, good to be here. Thanks for that introduction.
No problem at all. So, Rick, I want to start with a story. Take us back to the first moment you realized the way you were thinking about yourself might actually be contribute to what you were actually suffering.
Well, people had already been telling me that all through my youth. You got to stop thinking so much, and you definitely got to stop talking so much. Yeah, I mean, therapy, just being kind of an unruly child, really it was not, it was quite a few years later that I actually realized that what I'm thinking about is really my biggest cause of frustration, my biggest cause of self-discomfort, potentially, moments of self-loathing, some seriously negative thinking and negative beliefs. So it's still a work in progress, but yeah, it's hard to say if there was an actual moment. I think really meditation and just calming and seeing thoughts was a huge, slow, but certain transition into realizing that it's kind of all in my head.
I'm glad that you started there, Rick, because something that I realized is that for overthinkers, it's not as easy to not think so much. But to think so much and talk so much, that could really be a lot for your, I guess, your psyche to really take in. And I like that you talked about most of the time it was your thoughts, your thinking process, your thinking patterns that fuel frustration, that fuel self-discomfort, that fuel self-loathing behaviors, that fuel negative beliefs. That's really powerful because a lot of times people may not even realize there's a connection within those thoughts and then those feelings and experiences and behaviors that they actually start to realize is their reality. And what you're saying kind of reminds me a lot about the women that I work with. They're eating healthier, trying supplements, trying to manage inflammation, trying to balance hormones. But underneath all of that, they're carrying a constant inner dialogue that says, I'm behind, I'm broken, I'm failing, I'm not being as productive as I should be further along in my life, my body is a problem. And I wonder how much healing gets delayed because we're trying to heal a body that we're in some way, shape, form, or fashion, we're kind of angry at, you know?
Oh, definitely. I can totally relate to that, and I have believed thoughts for so long, and judgments of other people, and what they should be doing. I mean, we're all here independently having our own experience as human beings. We connect with those people that we love, that we meet and that we love. We have children and we love them, but we are having an independent experience. And it seems like from the beginning, we're told this and that, and we're not prepared. We're not educated yet when we're young to understand that what we're being told about ourselves is not necessarily true. And even if it were, nothing is permanent. Nothing has to stay set in stone. So that's a beautiful thought for me to recognize that anything I've ever been told I am, any thoughts I've had that describe who I should be or who I am, are just that. They're just that. They're just thoughts, and they can be useful. Thoughts are not the problem. It's just choosing which thoughts that we want to stay with and just observing. But they can be really harmful, as you know. I mean, thoughts, I think, they're a passion for me. They're kind of like, it's sort of like fishing. I'm kind of, or bird watching. I'm thought watching, always looking for the next thought. Is that useful? I mean, it's so easy to get lost in a thought. You can, you could be thinking about something. It can be a concern, some kind of a worry, some kind of a distraction, and you're gone. And then you wake up to it, and it can be something that reoccurs that you keep thinking about. All that wasted mental power, it could just be, all of that could be spent, with healthier, thoughts, or just even healthier being, without trying to think, just to be. And I think just being has been one of the greatest discoveries for me through this sort of thought watching process. Just learning how to be good with where I'm at, and seeing that recognizing that thoughts are just a natural part of the human experience, and that we can't really choose what thoughts rise. They rise, and they maybe rise from causes and conditions, and others just rise because they just do. And we don't have to really understand, I don't think anyway, why they rise. But the fact that they do, it's like watching a movie go by. That's all these scenes, and you're just sitting back in the audience. You're just watching these thoughts. And you could choose if you want to become one of the actors, one of the characters in it. Pretty soon, an hour of the movies come, and you pull back out again. You're like, wow, I actually got right into that role. Look at me. I got all caught up. I got all wrapped up in it. I could have just sat back and watched it, and it could have just passed on by. So, yeah, the practice of watching thoughts is sort of been a key practice for me, a key element.
I like that you reminded us that nothing is permanent. Like a thought can just be a thought. It doesn't have to be permanent. Y'all comment the word nothing if you're watching the video version of the Empire Plates, Empire Lives podcast on YouTube right now. Nothing is permanent. We need to remember that. I like that you see watching and observing your thoughts as a practice. But something that really stood out to me was when you said just thoughts, choose the thoughts you want to stay with. It's still a choice. The thought may arise, it may be there, but you can let that thought go, or you can get wrapped up in it, become in that role, let it motivate you, let it now transition into you becoming that thought, whether it's positive or negative. But just remembering that you can get caught up in it, but most importantly, it's not permanent. Just focus more on being who it is that you want to be. It made me want to think about this question. How many health struggles do you think are amplified by the stories people constantly tell themselves?
For me, it's been many. And I think that we can, the power of the mind. I mean, I'm not a scientist. This isn't my particular area of expertise, but I know from personal experience that what I practice for myself becomes, my characteristics. And so, like just the thing about like even weight gain and weight loss becomes something, that I think about from time to time, and it's like I want to be healthier, and I think about, like, I've got a trip. We're going to Hawaii. We're taking the whole family. And my son-in-law was saying, yeah, I'm going to start getting all fit and buffed up, and going to look good on the beach. And I was thinking, wow, I'm 65, man. What can I do between now and then? And then I started thinking to myself, well, who am I trying to impress? And what do I need to do? Do I need to be like Mr. V-Man out there on the beach? I mean, those are thoughts. Those are the kind of things I'm talking about. It's just being good with where you're at. And if you have I assume that if I have a health problem, I actually just, for example, and this is a very minor thing, this is not a serious thing. It's a cold. When you get a cold, it's like, darn that cold, the drippy this and the drippy that, the coffee, the sneezing, everything. I actually have learned how to use a cold or a sickness as a means to help me wake up to the present moment, to recognize what my body's doing, and to just realize that this is passing and that these are just symptoms. And this is not my last cold. It's not my last sickness. We actually get sick and die. I mean, that is the plan pretty much for us all, that we end up that way. So sickness is a part of life. I think it just boils down to how I deal with the sickness, instead of like rejecting it and pushing it away and like, I hate this feeling and all that. I actually want to take that and turn it all the way around. And I want to embrace the fact that sickness is a natural part of living, and that I don't want to fight it. I want the sickness to do its process and to not take me down emotionally with it. It could kill me anyway, but in that sense, either way, it makes sense to just be as good with it as you can be. Now, I hope that's helpful. That's how I have come to view sickness for me. I know for cancer and really serious conditions, it's easy for me to say, but it's very hard in those conditions to practice. But in general, that's how I view being with sickness.
And I like that you talked about sickness being a natural part of living. I find it to be the body's way of communicating back to you, whether it's something that you need to kind of figure out what the root cause is. What is it telling you about your body, the state your body's in right now? Maybe it is your energy, your thoughts, your feelings, your beliefs. Maybe it's how you're living, how your behaviors are, what you're actually doing, what might be toxic. It could be in the environment. It could be more than that. And so I'm really glad that you talked about sickness being a natural part of living. I see it as a natural part of communicating back to you when it comes to your body. Something else that you said was the power of the mind. And what I practice becomes my characteristics. I think sometimes with women who are dealing with debilitating pelvic pain, heavy periods, pain every single day, almost needing to almost be dependent on over-the-counter medications, heavy flows, just really imbalance with weight fluctuations. You talked about weight earlier, inability to lose weight, inability to gain weight, just a lot of different fluctuations with the body happening. Sometimes we become critical of our body, of our health, The way we're observing what we're experiencing with our body sometimes is as if it's I'm my body, but then I see my body as another instinct or situation or thing that I can't control, but can I? And so I really like that you talked about the power of the mind, because sometimes when someone is diagnosed with a chronic dis-ease, there's a identity that they may take on. There's certain characteristics they may take on. They might find identity in their pain. They may find identity in their struggles. They may find identity within that diagnosis. And what I love for people to get out of the Empowered Plates, Empowered Lives podcast is the power to understand that there's still things you can do throughout that journey with that pain, that journey with that frustration, that confusion of where you are in life right now. And so I just want people to realize there's still power that they can take back within this story, within this experience that they may be experiencing right now when it comes to their body, when it comes to their health, when it comes to their healing. But to remember that their thought process really plays a huge role on how they show up in life and how they maintain their own personal relationship with themselves. And so that's really important. Y'all, this episode of the Empowered Plates, Empowered Lives podcast is sponsored by Forward Vibrations, the movement that is moving women with health conditions, struggles, pelvic pain, burnout, inflammation, really moving you into a space where you can move from survival mode into thrive. Head over to forwardvibrations.me and take the Spot Your Triggers quiz. Take the show notes to get all your healing vibe steps. So, Rick, let's dive back into the conversation, because we're really getting into watching your thoughts, really getting into the power of the thoughts. But one thing I noticed working with women is that many of them really are frustrated and angry at their symptoms. They're ashamed that they aren't making progress. They're not losing the weight. They're not losing the unwanted facial hair. They're not finding the confidence in how they're able to truly show up and love themselves and care for themselves in a way that makes them confident that they actually got a handle on this thing called life. Can healing happen if we're constantly fighting ourselves, Rick?
Well, it's hard to imagine how it could. You know, I see that there's two things with me personally. There's the body, and then there's the spirit or my soul. You know, the person, the thing it's like I'm renting this body for a period of time. And I just try to look at my body now as a vehicle, as a transportation tool. And I try not to associate a direct connection between the person inside that's expressing and having this conversation and the actual body itself. You know, when I make that distinction, it's easier to say, for just a moment, to even try it, to say my cold that I have is over there. It's kind of in my body and it's over there, and to look objectively at my body like it's a vehicle and see where it's not performing well. Maybe how did I get that, whatever I have. In my case, it was the person in 28C on the flight home, according to my wife. So some things are almost directly identifiable. But, you know, having a view, and I don't mean like a woo-woo out of body experience here. I'm not talking about some mystical thing here. But it has been a huge transformation for me to view the body as I view my car. My car, the tires are starting to wear down. Well, I have to do something about that, or something is going to penetrate the tire more easily. I get a flat, and then I got a bigger problem because I'm stuck somewhere. You know, always checking the oil, keeping it clean, and making sure that it's like, if I have a clean car, I have a clean mind. If I have a clear body and I'm eating the right foods, if I'm eating steak and cheese and eggs and stuff, and I'm like, you know, bummer, I have this, you know, I'm fat, or I'm my cholesterol is really high, and then I just go down and I make a nice cheese omelet, and have a pan-seared steak, for dinner. I mean, I think those things need to be looked at objectively. Like, you look at your body and you see what you're feeding it, and then you look at how you feel about that. Is that working for you? What kind of long view? I look at my long view and I'm like, what do I want to be doing in the future? I want my body to be able to carry me up the trail with my 20-year-old sons, continue to do that. I have things I want to do, and it's my body that is going to carry me there and do that. I want to show up for things. So I start to really have a serious conversation, a real serious look at what I'm doing to my body. And then I go so far as to ask myself, why? Why do I have that behavior? And I start to try to really get real with that. And that's where meditation and thoughts begin their process. And I have that daily practice to help me see the truth of what's rising in terms of thoughts. It's very directional and informational.
I agree. I like this idea or this concept that you talked about, feeding versus feeling. And I feel like sometimes they can be almost influenced by the other. How I'm feeling now impacts how I'm feeding my body, or how what I'm feeding my thought process is now how I'm starting to feel when it comes to this aspect of my life. And so I feel like that feeding versus feeling concept that you brought out could really go in a lot of different ways when you think about your health, when you think about your habits, when you think about your healing journey. That feeding and that feeling, they can definitely intertwine and be impactful. I like that you started this segment off with the body and then the spirit or soul. And I feel like that's really a huge concept, because if you treat your body, sometimes people say treat it like a temple. Some people say treat it like your car. You're going to need maintenance. It's not going to always run 100% full throttle. And when the check engine light comes on or a sensor light comes on, you do whatever it is to try to figure it out. Or you can be, sometimes there's those people who the light comes on, you be like, oh, it's okay. It always comes on. Nothing's really wrong. And then you go through ignoring things that should not be ignored, or normalizing things because it's normal for that light to be on and you not to truly check it, i.e. the pelvic pain, the heavy periods, the bloating, the burnout, the fatigue, the unwanted facial hair. It's normal for you to experience those things, but it's not normal for a healthy person. And so sometimes those ways that your body is communicating, those symptoms, those signs, are things that you might need to really look into. And so I'm really glad that you brought that out. But something that was really powerful, Rick, is when you said to ask yourself why in regards to certain behaviors, or why you behave the way you do, or you respond the way you do, or you have the relationship with food the way you do at certain times. Ask yourself why. The why question is very powerful because it shows you where your decisions are and where sometimes the root of who you have become are how it's influenced by your decision and your choices. So if y'all are still tuned in, comment why. WHY. Why? Get in the habit of asking yourself why. Why the thoughts? Why the feelings? Why this choice of food? Why? And I feel like that's something that we need to look into. Why the pelvic pain every single day? Why? And really get to a place where you get relentless and you don't want to not accept not having an answer and being unsure, that you just continue to navigate the healthcare system, you navigate the different researches, you navigate through the different podcast episodes and health videos until you find something that aligns with your lifestyle on the why of things that are happening for you. And I think that's really important. Rick, do you think that people spend so much time trying to improve themselves because they secretly believe that they aren't enough?
Oh yeah, I'm I'm one. That's been a lifelong challenge for me, being enough.
Mm-hmm.
Overcompensating to show my self-worth. You know, something lately, these past few years, I've developed the ability to be vulnerable. And I love vulnerability. I I used to just the word would give me the cringes because being vulnerable means sharing yourself, sharing something very personal and deep that you don't have it all together. You know, a lot of people, like I've been in roles, most of the things I've worked for myself since 1992, and I've always been, the president of my companies because I always created the company. So, there was always like an act I felt like I needed to put on, like be a certain way. But, vulnerability has risen because I want to be known. I want to be seen because I don't want to have things stuffed and covered anymore because it gives me freedom. It allows me to be real about what I'm seeing. And most importantly, to love myself enough to take action. So you can see, yeah, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. Most people know what's going on. Most people literally know what their problem is. They may not know the causes of it, but they know that they're eating wrong or they're drinking too much alcohol, or they're having too much salt and it's high blood pressure or whatever. It's the action piece. For me, it's mind, body, and action. And I think that the action piece, having little baby steps to do something, to just try something. For example, I'm going to try to be vulnerable. I want to be seen. I want to be known because I think that being seen and known creates better connectivity for me to others. And I believe that we're all connected. So my thoughts tell me, look, we're all connected. So how do I feel more connected? Is to be vulnerable and to share part of myself. The love that I can share, the love that I can now receive because I'm more open. So those are the kind of realizations that have come about from this thought watching and really paying attention and taking action. And the action is, for me, in that one piece, is just being vulnerable.
I like that you gave us a new concept. And maybe it's new to me as of today. The MBA, mind, body, action. I like it. The MBA, and I feel like it's really good. And y'all put that in the comments. MBA, mind, body, action. I love the concept of vulnerability. When you were talking about real love, authenticity, and being able to truly reflect and then take action because you're being real with yourself. I absolutely love it. I feel like there is a level of confidence and courage that comes from being vulnerable. And what we're doing right now, having this conversation, is a form of vulnerability. Not everybody is going to come on a podcast or a platform and truly share their personal experiences, challenges, obstacles, and then say, this is what I learned from it, or this is what I went through. So there's some type of human connection and relatability of what you've experienced, but also letting you know what is possible by transferring that experience into something that is purposeful. The pain, the challenges, the struggles, all of that can turn into something valuable if you allow it to. And so I'm really glad that you reminded us that vulnerability is just about being real, and it's just about loving yourself from the inside out. What doesn't feel good or looks good all the time, but it's still you, and you are enough, and you are powerful enough, and that you're worth the journey that you want to go on when it comes to how you want to live this thing called life. And so I'm really glad that you reminded us of that, as well as that our thoughts are all connected, even when we connect those same thoughts, like we're doing right now in this empowering conversation together. So that MBA is powerful. Let's get into, Rick, your experience. You spent years studying meditation. What's the biggest thing that meditation taught you about yourself that had nothing to do with sitting quietly?
That basically I am not my thoughts. I think that when you realize that your thoughts are just part of, I know that I focus a lot on thoughts we have a lot of them, but they come up often, monkey mind. But I think thoughts is really when I sit and meditate, and I have for many years, I've just come to believe more and more that thoughts are just part of the process of being human, and that I am not my thoughts. There's something that's generated in my body experience, and I'm just a witness. I'm just using my body as the vehicle, as I said before.
I am not my thoughts. Y'all put that in the comments. I am not my thoughts. I am just a witness.
It's just, I'm not just saying that because it
No,
sounds
it's true.
cliche or whatever. It's absolutely true. I am not my thoughts. And, I've noticed that through this transformation, the friends I have now, there is just no time for small talk. There's no chit chat. There's no politics. There's none of the BS. We just don't have time for it anymore. And I noticed how my circle of friends changed as I changed without going out looking for them. It's sort of like I just drew them in. You have a conversation with somebody new, and you find yourself having a different kind of conversation, something on a more personal level, that vulnerability piece. And they're like, wow, this guy's like being vulnerable. He's sharing a piece of himself. Wow. I'm going to give him a piece of myself too. And then you make this connection, and you have a warmth. It's an actual connection. I believe this. Again, I'm not trying to get woo-woo here, but I believe it's a connection. And you're like, hey, would you like to have coffee sometime? And then you have coffee and you share some stories, and maybe it works out, and maybe it doesn't, as friends, can go, friendships can go. But my circle of friends are completely different thinkers than the ones before that were driven for success, were concerned about the way others viewed them, the way that they, changed their look, their persona, their home, their car, whatever. Some things we do for comfort and because it just feels good, but when we start doing things for other people that are out there having their own experience, why? Well, what's the point? This is the kind of thing my friends and I, we talk about. We're just not into that kind of thing. We just want to have real conversations about heartfelt topics that relate to family and friends and life, and how we can support each other without coming right out and saying, I want to support you. You just naturally do it through your interaction.
Thank you, Rick. So earlier I teased the realization that changed your relationship with yourself. What was it?
Yeah, I don't think it was a particular moment. It was a gradual thing. It was, I'm going to pull the baby steps thing. It was taking action, doing little things, being, fearless. I love vulnerability, but just trying to be different. It's just looking at what, I'm doing, and is that really working for me? Or is what I'm doing being done for others, or to keep up some sort of stature or some sort of image that I've been, made to realize, that I've allowed myself to realize is who I am. And I'm not my thoughts is so important, because those are the things that send us off into these directions, to be like somebody else. I have no social media accounts. I did that, and I just realized, for what purpose? The relationships I have are people I get on the phone with, and we talk. We meet in person. I know lots of people, and I have lots of associates and acquaintances that are very kind people. But to have those deeper relationships, I just have to recognize that I am enough, And I love to be with people that feel the same about themselves. It doesn't mean that we're great or special. It just means that we just love each other.
Thank you, Rick. I got it. Number 1 was taking action. 2, being different. 3, observe what I am doing for me, or am I doing it for others, or to keep up a status, and really just taking in that true reflection to understand in that observation of what I am. Is it why I want to be this way? What's at the root of this identity? How is this serving me? Or is it serving my community, my family in some way, shape, form, or fashion? And so I really like these 3. 1, taking action. 2, just choosing to be different. And 3, really observing what I am, who I am, what am I doing it for? Is it for me? Is it for others? And really understanding that identity piece, because I feel like a lot of times, Rick, people can get caught up in what I like to say survival mode. It's just how you've been programmed, how you've been wired, how you've made decisions all your life, the identities you've taken on, whether it's a people pleaser, someone just with no boundaries because you just want to continue to show up for everybody else. When you push through the to-do list, the tasks, all the different roles, serving in your family and in your community, and you really forget who you truly are and what makes you happy and how you like to go out and play, and really how do you care for you, love you, but most importantly, be able to be at a space where you are vulnerable enough to say, you know what, I need to choose me today. I need to be still. I need to really reflect on if I like the way life is going, or if I don't like it, what needs to change, and having the courage and bravery to do that change and step into that change and embody a new identity. And so I'm really grateful that we kind of hit on that aspect of the conversation and of your journey, so that way people can understand that there are things they can stop believing in. There's patterns that they don't have to continue to live in. They can disrupt it, and they can get out of that cycle and create a different one. And so I'm really glad that you spoke on that. What I'd like to ask you is that if a woman was listening to this conversation today, Rick, who spent several years believing she needs to become someone else before she deserves peace, what would you tell her?
I would ask her why, because I think the why leads to seeing what you view as important, and are those things that you see that are important, are they really important enough to act on them? Are you doing things for other people, or are you doing things for yourself? One of the greatest vulnerability pieces I work with is love, being able to say to someone that I love you, and even another man, I love you, and to receive love and to hear it back. I think there are some very fundamental changes that can lay the groundwork for just a better life in all of these areas you're asking about and that people deal with. Being seen, being okay to give love and receive love, being okay with who you are, being okay with your body the way it is. I think for me, there's one word that I look for in life more than anything else, and that's contentment. Because I don't want to be sad. It's coming. And I love happiness and joy, but you can't live. It's not realistic to live in a moment of happiness and joy all the time. Life is just full of these ups, and downs. It's contentment. It's not allowing myself to over happy and over sad, and to just see these things as in terms of thoughts. And I know that I keep talking about thoughts, At my age, I've really just come to realize that it is really just all in the mind, that everything, all of our problems, maybe not our health problems, maybe they are, maybe they're spawned and born from, from thoughts, but I think everything is in the mind. It's such a big thing that I've written a book about it, In Search of the Perfect Guitar, which sounds a little off topic, but it's actually not. But it deals with thoughts and focusing on sounds as a focal point. And the one tool that I use every day and have used since the beginning of meditation that has been the greatest tool of all for me is to focus on a single object. A thought arises, you go back to the single object. Now, I didn't invent this. This has been going on for thousands of years. Used to be historically that the focus would be the breath, and it still is today. You sit quietly and you breathe in, thought comes up, I need to do this. I need to do that. You bring it right back to the breath and actually count your breaths. And I would love to challenge your listeners to see if they can follow their breath to the count of 10 very slowly without losing count. That is a really challenging thing to do for many people. I know it was for me. But you breathe in through the nose very slowly and out. And that's 1. And in, and this slow process to 10. And thoughts are going to come. They are coming. Get ready. And I'd just love to know how many people try this and where they lose count. A lot of people don't remember where they lost count. They just know they lost count. But this strengthening of this ability to follow the breath or follow a sound and counting is the fundamental practice that has helped me see thoughts, recognize what they are, to not get attached to them, to let them go, and to not believe everything I think. It has changed everything. It's changed my relationships with those new friends I have built over the past few years. It's improved my marriage of I'm 38 years of marriage. And, I have an incredible relationship with my kids because I keep my mouth shut. Because I see the thoughts that come up that want to tell my adult married kids what to do. You shouldn't do this. You shouldn't do that. Instead, I kind of slide things in gently. Have you considered this? Have you considered that? And it's just because I see it now more. It's like, you're doing something. Don't do that. The next phase, you're doing something. Okay, maybe you don't want to do that. Next phase. Oh, I see they're doing something. Should I say something? And then you just gradually, you close the gap between reaction and consideration. And that has been, it's transformative. It's powerful. It's the root cause for my progress that I've made.
I love reaction versus reconsideration. That's powerful, Rick. That one's powerful. Reaction versus reconsideration. Y'all, he challenged the Empowered Place, Empire Lives podcast listeners. All right. The challenge is to follow the breath. All right. Counting all the way to 10 and see how far you get. Let us know in the comments. All right. Let us know in the comments how far you get, commenting how far you get in regards to the breath work. All right. Inhale, slow.
Panting. None of this panting thing. Like one, two, three,
and I feel like you're going to keep hearing Rich say, the thoughts are coming. The thoughts are coming. I feel like you're going to hear that in the back of your mind. But I like the tool. Tool number 1, to focus on a single object. As a thought arises, you go back to that single object that you identified. I think that's really good. Those 5 fundamental things that you talked about earlier, Rick, was 1, being seen; 2, giving love; 3, receiving love; 4, being okay with your body as it is; and then finding and being okay with true contentment. I think those are really good fundamentals to really take away from this conversation, to really get an understanding of what it looks like to not just understand the power of thoughts, but to understand how to really get to a place of peace for yourself every single day. And I think that's really positive, because the relationship we have with ourselves is the most valuable relationship there is. And so we're going to move into what I call vitality sparks. It's like a rapid fire round. Are you ready, Rick?
Okay, let's do it. I'll give it a
Here
go.
we go. 1, what is one thought pattern people should challenge immediately?
Use negative thoughts as a trigger to recognize that you're getting attached to the thought.
What is one daily practice that helps people reconnect to themselves?
Sit in the silence between a sound or a thought. Thought comes up, let it pass, and sit in the silence between thoughts.
What's one thing people mistake for happiness?
Ooh, that's a good one. Wow. One thing. I don't really know if I could answer that, because happiness is relative, I think, to each person. Yeah, I don't really have the answer for that. That's a very tough one. I think I failed on that one.
There's no failure. Let that thought pass straight out of your head, Rick. There's
I
no.
still do it. Guilty. Guilty.
What's one? What's one thing listeners can do in the next 24 hours to create more peace?
Find some quiet time for yourself and just sit. It seems that the answer is always the same, to be honest. It seems like, when you have a moment of happiness, just be with it and recognize that happiness is going to pass. Don't eat 2 pieces of cake or 3 pieces of cake or 4. Just try to be with the joy in the moment of that happiness. That's my answer on the happiness one.
Complete this sentence. Healing gets easier when
I see my thoughts as passing.
All right. So give some advice to the girl dads, the father figures, role models, partners, spouses of the women and children dealing with heavy periods, pelvic pain, fatigue, burnout. How could they be more a part of the healing journey?
I would say that, love is really the answer to it all, is just to be genuinely and authentically caring. And, when it's hard for whatever reason, to just try anyway, to just, tell yourself that you love someone, I think is part of a huge transformation.
I like it. If you could have a meal with any historical figure, who would it be and what would you all eat?
It would be the Buddha, I believe, and we would eat a bowl of rice with our fingers.
Okay. I'm with it. I'm with it. Let everybody know where they can find you, where they can connect with you, and where could they get that book?
Theperfectguitar.com has the book is not out yet. It's I'm in my 3rd edit, and there's a sign up form there. And on that site is all the other things that I do and have done. And yeah.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Rick, for coming and really having a great conversation in regards to thoughts, the process of thoughts, meditation, but most importantly, what people can do to find more peace. Y'all, it's your healthy habits and lifestyle coach, Jovonnie. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Empowered Plates, Empowered Lives podcast. This episode is brought to you by Forward Vibrations. Head over to forwardvibrations.me. Get connected, take the Spot Your Triggers quiz, and if you are ready to get out of the pattern that is fueling your inflammation, pelvic pain, and fatigue, take the Spot Your Triggers quiz and book your healing breakthrough session. Thanks for vibing with me, y'all.